The Viridia Prime Neutral Space Station loomed against the backdrop of swirling cosmic gases, its intricate design reflecting the collaborative engineering of three galactic powers who rarely agreed on anything. Today, the station buzzed with unusual activity as delegations from the Xylar Collective, Lumina Alliance, and Sthrak Combine arrived for what many hoped would be the end of a centuries-long territorial dispute. The atmosphere was tense but controlled, each species maintaining the proper diplomatic distance that interstellar protocol demanded. Among the arriving vessels was the Starlight Beacon, a human exploration ship retrofitted for diplomatic purposes. Unlike the ornate vessels of the Lumina or the imposing, sharp-edged crafts of the Xylar, the human ship bore a utilitarian design with none of the expected military embellishments common to emerging species. As the docking procedures commenced, the station's communication officers exchanged glances of mild confusion. The human respiratory pattern's seam accelerated, murmured a slender Lumina controller, her translucent fingers dancing over holographic controls. "Are they experiencing distress?" "Unknown," replied her Xylar counterpart, multiple eye stalks swiveling to observe the incoming visual feed. Their core temperature readings are also unusually high. Perhaps their environmental systems are malfunctioning. Inside the Starlight Beacon, Ambassador Ilara Vance reviewed her notes one final time. At 53, she had spent most of her career negotiating peace treaties on Earth before humanity's faster-than-light breakthrough catapulted them onto the galactic stage. This invitation, to observe a major peace conference as a neutral third party, represented humanity's first significant diplomatic opportunity. "Remember," she addressed her small team, "we're here to learn, establish peaceful diplomatic relations, and demonstrate goodwill. The Galactic Council considers us newcomers, so let's not give them any reason to reconsider our observer status." Beside her, Security Commander Marcus Jones stood at parade rest, his tall frame and watchful eyes reflecting 20 years of military service in Earth's most contested regions. Unlike Ambassador Vance's animated expressions, Jones maintained a calm, efficient demeanor that revealed little of his constant environmental assessment. "Understood, Ambassador," he replied, checking his standard-issue diplomatic security kit one final time. "My team will maintain minimal visible presence as requested." On Vance's other side fidgeted Dr. Kenji Tanaka, linguistic and cultural genius whose social awkwardness was matched only by his encyclopedic knowledge of the known galactic species. "Fascinating," he murmured, eyes darting over his data tablet. The Lumina greeting protocol includes 17 distinct hand positions, while the Sthrak prefer olfactory acknowledgments. I've prepared appropriate responses for both, though I'm concerned about the pheromone balance in our Sthrak greeting formula. As the airlock cycled, Ambassador Vance straightened her posture. "We'll manage, Dr. Tanaka. Let's make Earth proud." The meeting with station officials began cordially, but became strained as the humans struggled with the complex greeting rituals. Dr. Tanaka attempted the elaborate 17-position Lumina greeting, but inverted position 7 and 11, a mistake that, while minor, suggested to the Lumina representative that humans might harbor territorial ambitions in the Cygnus sector. Meanwhile, Commander Jones remained several paces behind Ambassador Vance, his eyes continuously scanning entrances, exits, and the positions of all non-human security personnel, a behavior that the station's security AI flagged as potentially aggressive. The first truly alarming incident occurred as they approached the residential sector. A maintenance drone malfunctioned, emitting a brief supersonic pulse that registered as merely a pop to human ears, but caused immediate pain to the Xylar escort and several passing delegates with sensitive auditory organs. While the affected aliens doubled over or froze in disorientation, Commander Jones reacted with trained precision. In one fluid motion, he positioned himself between the sound source and Ambassador Vance, pushed Dr. Tanaka behind him with his left arm, and simultaneously reached for his scanner with his right hand to identify potential threats. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds, but the station's security cameras captured it all. What Jones considered a standard defensive posture appeared to the watching aliens as combat preparation of frightening efficiency. The station's biological scanners, automatically documenting the physiological responses of all species during the incident, recorded the humans' elevated heart rates, adrenal spike, and rapid muscular deployment, all while maintaining cognitive function that most species would lose. During a fear response, "Did you see how quickly it moved?" whispered his Throck trader to his colleague as they watched the humans continue down the corridor. "No hesitation, no confusion, straight to combat stance. Their skeletal density readings are off the charts," replied his associate. "And that body temperature, they're practically walking furnaces." As the humans settled into their quarters, unaware of the ripples they were causing, the term Death Worlders began circulating among junior delegates and support staff. The station's automated translation systems struggled with the nuance, eventually settling on beings from the Death World and standard communications. By the time the opening ceremony began the following day, the rumors had reached mid-level diplomatic channels. The Grand Assembly Hall, a massive space designed to accommodate species ranging from the methane-breathing Zith to the photosynthetic Kala, hummed with an undercurrent of tension as delegates took their species-appropriate seating arrangements. Ambassador Vance gazed around in wonder. The hall represented a chaotic aesthetic, with sections varying in temperature, lighting, and atmospheric composition. Gravity plates beneath the flooring adjusted for different physiological needs, causing a subtle feeling of vertigo as one moved between sections. The central speaking platform hovered in the middle, accessible by various means depending on a species' locomotive capabilities. "Remarkable engineering," Dr. Tanaka whispered, already recording observations on his tablet. "Look at the acoustic baffles. They're designed to modulate sound waves differently for each auditory system." Commander Jones remained silent, but Ambassador Vance noticed how his eyes lingered on the security arrangements, likely identifying weaknesses out of habit. The conference opened with elaborate speeches from the three major factions. The Xyla representative, a six-limbed being with iridescent exoskeleton, delivered a technically brilliant address filled with subtle references to their technological superiority. The ancient luminous speaker followed with a philosophically complex argument built around historical precedents only their long-lived species fully remembered. Finally, the Throck Combine representative emphasized practical economic considerations with barely disguised threats about trade route disruptions. When Ambassador Vance's turn came for a brief welcome as the human representative, she kept her message simple. Humanity is honored to observe these historic proceedings. Though we are newcomers to the galactic community, we deeply value peace, cooperation, and the exchange of knowledge. We hope our neutral perspective might sometimes offer fresh insights, and we stand ready to learn from your ancient and wise civilizations. Her speech was met with polite acknowledgement, though several delegates exchanged meaningful glances at her use of the word fresh, which the translation system had rendered with connotations of untested or naive in several languages. During the first reception that followed, the humans unwittingly triggered several more alarming incidents. Dr. Tanaka, eager to understand a plant-based species' digestive system, engaged a willowy Fotuvi delegate in conversation about their nutrition. When the Fotuvi mentioned their specialized digestive processes, Tanaka enthusiastically offered a piece of strong peppermint gum as a comparison to their own food. "This contains organic compounds humans find pleasantly stimulating," he explained, offering the small white square. The Fotuvi politely accepted, but upon placing the gum in their absorption pouch, immediately began emitting distress pheromones. A nearby Throck diplomat, whose respiratory system was hypersensitive to certain terpenes, began convulsing violently as the peppermint molecules reached him. Medical responders rushed to the scene, administering emergency countermeasures to both affected delegates. "It's a neurotoxin," gasped the Throck as they stabilized. The human offered a neurotoxin as casual refreshment. Dr. Tanaka was mortified. "I had no idea. Our chemical databases must be incomplete. Menthol is completely harmless to humans." Station security documented the incident, noting with alarm that a compound humans casually consumed for pleasure could incapacitate multiple species. The biological report was amended. Humans not only had remarkable physical capabilities, but also appeared immune to substances that proved toxic to others. Later that evening, Ambassador Vance found herself in a discussion group examining historical rules of engagement. Attempting to explain humanity's caution about overcommitting resources, she used the phrase, "putting all your eggs in one basket." The translation system rendered the idiom literally, causing immediate offense to the avian-ovian delegates, whose reproduction cycle involved sacred egg-laying rituals. They interpreted her statement as a barbaric threat against their young, suggesting that humans might gather ovian offspring for destruction. "Ambassador, I assure you that was a linguistic misunderstanding," Vance explained hurriedly as she noticed their feather crests rising in alarm. "It's merely a metaphorical expression about resource allocation." The clarification was accepted, but damage had been done. Reports circulated that humans employed casual death threats in diplomatic conversations and possessed frightening reproductive concepts. Meanwhile, Commander Jones had located the station's physical training facility and, finding himself with free time, decided to maintain his usual exercise regimen. The multi-species gym contained various equipment designed for different physiological needs and gravitational preferences. Jones selected what appeared to be standard resistance training devices, unaware that the settings he chose were calibrated for species with significantly lower strength thresholds. As he completed his third set of what humans would consider moderate lifting, he noticed several station security officers watching him with what he interpreted as professional interest. In reality, they were documenting with alarm his ability to operate equipment at settings labeled unsafe for most sentient species. When Jones moved to cardiovascular training, running at what he considered a comfortable pace on a gravity-adjusted treadmill, the observers discreetly contacted their superiors. By the second day of the conference, security around the human delegation had been subtly but noticeably increased. The term Death Worlder had reached senior diplomatic channels, and theories circulated about whether humanity's neutrality was genuine or a cover for more ominous purposes. What if, some wondered, humans were advanced scouts for a militaristic expansion? What kind of hellish environment had produced beings who casually exercised at levels that would physically break most species? The third day brought the first substantive peace negotiations, which quickly reached an impasse. The Xyler Collective refused to relinquish mining rights in the contested Darmani Belt, while the Lumina Alliance cited ancient spiritual connections to the same region. The Strat Combine, meanwhile, demanded guaranteed trade passage rights regardless of territorial outcomes. Ambassador Vance, sensing the potential collapse of talks, requested permission to offer an observation. After some hesitation, the conference chair granted her request. "If I may suggest an alternative approach," she began carefully. "Earth's history has shown that establishing joint economic and scientific projects often creates practical cooperation that can precede formal territorial agreements. Perhaps a neutral monitoring committee could oversee collaborative ventures in the contested regions, with profits and research benefits shared according to a predetermined formula." Her suggestion was met with skeptical silence. To the various delegations, the human proposal seemed either naively idealistic or a clever attempt to insert Earth into a position of influence. The Xyler representative eventually responded with barely concealed condescension, explaining that galactic politics had complexities beyond humanity's limited experience. As tensions continued to build, disaster struck on the fourth day. The station's computer systems suddenly began malfunctioning, with life support systems fluctuating and communication networks experiencing cascading failures. Emergency protocols activated, but key security systems remained compromised. In the human quarters, Dr. Tanaka noticed anomalies in his data access that suggested a sophisticated attack. "This isn't a random malfunction," he told Ambassador Vance and Commander Jones. "The pattern resembles theoretical virus structures we've studied on Earth. It's using a recursive logic that our early AI researchers explored before establishing ethical guidelines." Jones immediately implemented standard diplomatic protection protocols, securing their living quarters and establishing a makeshift perimeter. Until we know what's happening, we should assume the worst, he explained, setting up motion sensors and temporary barriers from his security kit. Dr. Tanaka worked feverishly on his personal device, attempting to develop countermeasures. If I can isolate the pattern correctly, I might be able to create a temporary firewall that could at least protect essential systems until station security isolates the threat. Ambassador Vance tried to contact station management to share Tanaka's findings and coordinate their response, but the failing communication systems fragmented her messages, with only portions reaching their intended recipients. To those receiving these partial communications, it appeared the humans were taking unilateral and potentially suspicious actions during a station-wide emergency. Security cameras captured footage of Commander Jones establishing defensive positions, while partial system logs showed Dr. Tanaka attempting to access critical network nodes. Without context, these actions appeared to station security as potential attempts to seize control during a crisis. As emergency crews struggled to contain the spreading system failures, rumors spread that the humans, with their inexplicable resistance to toxins, alarming physical capabilities, and aggressive security posture, might be behind the attack. Perhaps their invitation to the peace conference had been a Trojan horse, allowing them access to the heart of galactic diplomacy. By the 6th hour of the crisis, station security, under pressure from increasingly panicked delegations, officially requested that the human representatives remain in their quarters with restricted network access for investigation and safety purposes. In practice, they were placed under guard. Inside their quarters, the human delegation reacted with shock and anger. "We were trying to help," Ambassador Vance protested to the security team. "Dr. Tanaka recognized patterns in the virus that your systems couldn't detect. My security measures were standard diplomatic protection protocols," Commander Jones added. "I was securing our position and defending nearby delegates, not establishing an offensive position." The security officers remained impassive, their own translation systems rendering the humans' explanations with subtle connotations of deception. Left alone, the three humans reviewed recordings of their actions, trying to understand how their intentions had been so thoroughly misunderstood. Dr. Tanaka realized that his algorithmic approach, while effective, had employed logic structures that appeared predatory and invasive by galactic programming standards. Jones understood that security measures considered basic and defensive on Earth were interpreted as aggressive militarization of civilian space. "We've been judged by standards we didn't even know existed," Ambassador Vance concluded. "Everything we've done has been filtered through their preconceptions and fears." The following morning, a high-level delegation arrived at the human quarters. It included the station commander, security chief, and representatives from all three major factions, all visibly armed. They presented evidence of the alarming incidents, from the peppermint reaction to Jones' exercise routines to Dr. Tanaka's network activities during the crisis. They demanded full explanations, implying severe consequences including indefinite detention, deportation, or even compulsory biological study. Ambassador Vance maintained her composure, methodically addressing each point from the human perspective. She explained the genuine intent behind each action, emphasizing the technological and cultural differences that had led to misunderstandings. Dr. Tanaka elaborated on the nature of his countermeasure code and why it might have appeared alien. Jones provided data showing his actions were entirely defensive and compliant with universal diplomatic protection protocols, even if those protocols were interpreted differently. "We came here in peace and with respect," Vance concluded. "We've made mistakes born of ignorance, not malice. If you would allow us to demonstrate." Her words were interrupted by a deafening explosion. The station shuddered, emergency alarms blaring with renewed urgency. Station Command Center under direct assault came a fragmented announcement over the emergency channel. "Unknown forces, multiple breaches, all security personnel respond." The delegation members in the human quarters exchanged looks of confusion and fear. This was clearly not part of their planned confrontation with the humans. Through the remaining functional sensors and the sound of weapons fire echoing through corridors, the humans realized that the station was under direct armed attack. The virus had been merely the first phase, weakening systems for this physical assault. The true saboteurs, later identified as a radical splinter faction seeking to derail the peace process, had launched a coordinated strike against the station's command center and vital areas, using weapons and tactics that overwhelmed the regular security forces. The human delegation faced a choice: remain confined as ordered and hope station security could handle the threat, or break confinement and intervene in a fight that wasn't theirs to save those who had just accused them. "We can't just sit here," Ambassador Vance decided, looking to her colleagues. Both nodded in agreement. Commander Jones quickly formulated a plan. Station security is fragmented and disorganized. They're trained for routine law enforcement, not combat against a prepared enemy. I can coordinate a defensive position for this sector at minimum and potentially assist in securing critical areas. Dr. Tanaka added, I might be able to restore local network nodes to maintain communications for at least part of the security forces. Even limited coordination would give them an advantage. With resolute efficiency, they enacted their plan. Jones broke through their confinement, quickly subduing the two guards with non-lethal takedowns that left them stunned by the human speed, but unharmed. He appropriated their communication equipment and directed Vance and Tanaka toward a secondary control room where they might establish a coordination point. As they moved through the corridors, they encountered the chaos of an unprepared civilian station facing military-style assault. Delegates and staff fled in panic while security forces attempted to establish defensive positions without proper coordination. Jones encountered a group of station security officers pinned down by precision fire from the attackers. Without hesitation, he assessed the tactical situation and took command. Covering fire patterns, he instructed, demonstrating positions that utilized the corridor architecture for maximum protection. Alternating suppression, 3-second intervals. The security officers, desperate for leadership, followed his instructions despite their initial alarm at the humans' escaped presence. When one of the attackers broke through, Jones engaged directly, his movements a blur of efficient combat training that neutralized the assailant without killing them. The watching security officers stared in shock at the human's speed and precision. Meanwhile, Dr. Tanaka located a secondary network access point and began establishing local communication links. His fingers flew over the unfamiliar interface, adapting Earth programming concepts to alien architecture. Fascinating hybrid logic structure, he muttered as he worked, identifying vulnerabilities in the attackers' own communication systems. Ambassador Vance found herself coordinating evacuations for injured delegates caught in crossfire. Her calm authority created order amid chaos, as she organized safe routes and prioritized medical assistance regardless of species or faction. When a young Lumina aide froze in terror before an approaching attacker, Vance physically pulled them to safety, her human strength allowing her to move the slender alien with unexpected ease. The human intervention created a stabilized zone that allowed station forces to regroup. Jones' tactical guidance slowed the attackers' advance, buying time for military vessels from the major factions to deploy emergency response teams. Tanaka's communication networks gave security forces the coordination advantage they desperately needed. Vance's evacuation efforts saved numerous lives that would have been lost in the chaos. When the faction military forces finally secured the station and captured the remaining attackers, they found something unexpected. Numerous witnesses from different species describing how the humans, the same humans they had feared and confined, had risked their lives to protect others. Security footage showed Jones shielding wounded Xyler personnel with his body during an explosion. Medical logs recorded Vance administering emergency first aid to species with physiologies she barely understood. System logs documented Tanaka's efforts to maintain life support for vulnerable areas even as he fought off digital attacks. 2 days later, as emergency repairs continued throughout the damaged station. The peace conference reconvened in a smaller, makeshift chamber. The atmosphere had fundamentally changed. The three major factions still maintained their territorial positions, but there was a new element in the room. A respected wariness toward the human delegation, now officially invited to participate rather than merely observe. The events of recent days have been illuminating, began the Xyla representative. We have perhaps been too quick to judge what we did not understand. The luminous speaker added, the characteristics that we found alarming in our human colleagues, their physical capabilities, their aggressive defense responses, their unusual biochemistry, proved to be adaptations that served all our benefit when true danger emerged. This Throck representative was more direct. You fight well for a diplomatic team. One wonders what your actual warriors are like. Ambassador Vance responded carefully, understanding the delicate shift in perception. Humanity evolved on a world that presented many challenges. What you perceive as unusual abilities are simply adaptations to our home environment. Our quickness to defend comes from a history where hesitation often meant death, but so too did our development of cooperation and protection for all, regardless of difference. The peace negotiations resumed with a new framework. While territorial disputes remained contentious, the shared experience of the attack created common ground. Ambassador Vance's earlier suggestion of joint projects received new consideration, particularly for security cooperation. A temporary ceasefire was established, along with initial agreements for collaborative research in non-disputed areas. The human delegation prepared to depart a week later, their observer mission complete, but with an open invitation to return for future negotiations. As they boarded the Starlight Beacon, they noticed the distance that station personnel still maintained, no longer hostile, but cautious. They'll never see us quite the same way again, will they? Dr. Tanaka asked as they watched the airlock cycle. No, Commander Jones replied. They'll respect us, maybe even ally with us, but there will always be that awareness that we're different. Ambassador Vance gazed out at the station that had nearly become their prison, then their battlefield, and finally their first true diplomatic achievement. They call us Death Worlders, but they're beginning to understand that surviving harsh conditions creates strength that can protect as well as threaten. It's a start. As the Starlight Beacon detached from the station, communications channels carried news throughout the galaxy of the curious humans. Dangerous allies, perhaps, but allies nonetheless. The temporary peace held, though beneath its surface lingered the newfound knowledge that somewhere in the spiral arm existed beings who carried death within their very biology, yet chose to use it for life. Humanity had accidentally frightened the galaxy, and in doing so, may have found its place within it.